Well, hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. If this is your first time here, I want to welcome you. My name is Riverly. I'm the founder of the Savvy Groomer, where I teach you to go from being burnt out, broke, and broken to healthy, wealthy, and happy, building a grooming business on your terms. So let's go ahead and hop in to go ahead and talk about today's topic. So today we're going to be talking about keeping up with the Joneses. I know this might be a little strange topic. You might be like, why are we going to be talking about this? But I actually had an amazing lunch that turned into a dinner with somebody that I really respect. They are a fantastic grooming business owner. They're a great groomer. They want to help our industry as a whole. Hey, Ashley, great to see you here. There's so many positive things with that. So what was really interesting is we were talking about about our past. We've known each other over 10 years now, just things like that. And one thing I also noticed was that we were talking about the industry as a whole, and then comparison, right? Comparing ourselves to other groomers, comparing ourselves to other speakers, because she's also a speaker and things like that. So I don't want to get on a high horse. I don't want to do anything like that. But one thing we really talked in depth about tonight was how frustrated we both were. Both her and I came from a very similar background. We came from poverty. We both were scrimping together when we started our grooming careers, or at least our businesses. We didn't have a lot of cushion. It was very much hand to mouth. We were very poor. She talks about how she used to have to ride her bike in the snow and take the bus in order to get to work. And for me, it was being pregnant in my car and then living in my grooming salon for the first 6 months of my son's life. So what was fascinating is that we were talking about different business models and how everyone does things differently. I love her business model. It works perfect for her. And it must be done right. Her business model must be done a very specific way. And it's her personality, it's her skill set, it's her demeanor. Everything makes that business model work so well. And I'm so proud of her for that. We were talking about how nothing is cookie cutter and how it's very important when industry leaders are talking about things. They come from a place of, what works for them may not work for everyone. But also these influencer groomers, I want to caution you guys to stop trying to keep up with these influencer groomers. Some of them are not making any money, and they're not going to tell you that. A lot of these groomers are just like regular influencers, like for social media, and they get contracts to push product. They get money from other sources we don't need, or a lot of these people don't need money. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a hobby groomer. There's nothing wrong with using grooming to push forward your emotional, physical, and mental well-being. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what I think creates a lot of problems, and I'm trying to articulate this in a way it doesn't come off preachy or judgmental. And it's a little hard because what I'm feeling is it's really not fair for somebody who, like me, came from extreme poverty, had $20 to spend on food, or someone like this other person I know who literally, she sold jewelry in order to buy her children, and she only got $80 for it. She sold all her jewelry to get $80 to try to buy them something for Christmas. That person is someone very different than somebody who opens up a business either with a gift, a grant, selling something. That it's not about privilege. But, and again, it's hard because I'm trying to come up with a way to explain this without being judgmental. I think it's a great benefit to have a spouse who will help you pay bills. I think it's a great benefit to have someone to help you through the hard times. But I want us to be careful is that to greet people where they are financially. And that if you can afford to take big risks, then great. If you want to open up a second location and you can afford to not have any income from that business for the first 3 to 5 years, that's great. But what I don't want to see happen is the single mom who sees you build out a shop and then build your second location in 5 years, giving 50%. And, they're like, I don't know how this person did it, right? So we need to accept where we are. Now, if you are the person who has a spouse who's incredibly giving, listen, I would like one of them. If you could find one for me, that'd be great. Or if you have a family member who's willing to give you some money, or if you have, I really don't suggest partners, but if you have a person that you can trust that you're going to open a partnership, those are all gifts. And that's amazing. And that does not mean you are less worthy. That does not mean that you are less deserving. But what it does mean is that your level of risk is significantly less than the person that if I didn't have dogs coming into my shop, we didn't eat. If we didn't have, if we didn't groom, we didn't eat. And I can't explain. It was really interesting because both of us, Ashley's saying, yeah, you find them on video games. Then I'm screwed because I don't like any kind of multiplayer games. I'm that person that even if I'm playing like a war game, I want to just do the farming and building my, my little farm. That's what I want to do. Basically, it is what it is. But again, I really honor that, and I'm not jealous. I'm so happy for you if that's what your situation is. But for those of us that have been in poverty, I want you to really hear this. Stop comparing yourself to these people and don't assume just because someone's done it, that will work for you. It's incredibly imperative for you to know exactly what you want, not just in this life, but also in your business. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? I'm also going to look at what is it that you want. I had a coaching client today that her and her friend have kind of similar. They're in the same area. One groomer is a power groomer, and she grooms 8 dogs a day. And the other one is like me, where she's grooming 5 dogs a day. And one groomer can get away with charging $80 and making $800 a day. And the other groomer, to make the same amount of money, right? Let's take our calculator out. All right, so let's take our $800 and divide it by 5. It's $160. Okay, so let me do that again because I want to double check my math. If that other groomer can groom 8 dogs at $80, 8 dogs times $80. So that groomer is making, the power groomer, 8 dogs, 8 hours is making $640. Okay, so then let's divide that by 5. That other groomer needs to charge $128 to do this. Okay, this is a problem because that other groomer is going to say, well, that person's charging $80 and they have XYZ 1, 2, 3, a similar business model, etc. But one groomer is just faster than the other. And so when this groomer feels inadequate because this other groomer is making more money, $80 groomer is making lots of money. She's really comfortable because she naturally can groom faster. Sometimes we just have superpowers. And this other groomer is going to feel inadequate or is in a sticky situation where she's going to have to charge, ready? 80, 90, 100. She's going to charge almost $40 more, actually more than $40, right? Almost 50% more to do the same. And that's not really fair. I really love the saying, run your own race, focus on your own game. Because unfortunately, if we look at everyone around us and we compare ourselves, it's so toxic and unhealthy. And no one's perfect. And I was talking with, my friend today when we went out to lunch. We were sitting there and we're like, all these things, we're like, I don't know how this person does it. And it's like, oh, well, she's got a husband who pays all the bills. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if she doesn't have to earn a paycheck, right? If a groomer owns a business and they do not have to take a paycheck, that is a very different business or business model. They could take more risks. They can afford to maybe expand faster, right? There's so much more involved. Or they may simply never make a profit. It could just be a hobby. As somebody who has ridden horses and shown dogs, owning a grooming business can be a very inexpensive hobby compared to the other two, right? And sometimes that is what's called a vanity vehicle. A vanity vehicle is basically a business that is built to make you feel important. And it's not uncommon. It is not uncommon for someone to have a hobby business and maybe even have 2 or 3 locations. I cannot tell you how many times, guys, I have gone through someone's books, they have done coaching, and their business is grossing. So grossing is making, before you pay all your expenses, $500,000 to $800,000. But they are taking home less than 10. It happens more often than you could ever believe. Deborah says, you're right, 100%. Better regulations helps to address these discrepancies. I think a lot of it comes down to us knowing who we are, what we want, and not falling into the trap. I do it more times than I'd like to admit, where I'm comparing myself as a speaker, let's say, to somebody else. And I don't take into account, okay, how long has she been speaking? Has she been speaking for a few years, or has it been a decade? Or I look at their business and they're so much further ahead and they can help more people. And I'm like, I want to get bigger so I can help more people. But I'm the one doing the majority of the work in my business. And I do have people I outsource things to, and I have team members. But for the most part, I'm the person, right? So they may have a staff. I don't know. I have to make sure I can pay my bills. They may not. We don't know what is going on in their business. We don't know, and therefore we should not compare ourselves. And even if they are a speaker or an industry leader, and again, that does not make them less than. It does not. Somebody who doesn't need to take money from the business may be an amazing business owner. They may be incredibly generous to their employees. They may be really a great mentor. But what you have to remember is that the advice that they are giving you, if you are not in that situation as well, may not help you. Hey, Marie, great to see you here live. I remember when I had my shop, and it sounds crazy now because it's been so long, before I set up the membership model and before I did a lot of things, I was doing what the industry told me to do. I went to seminars, I went to classes, and I was told pay your employees 50%. I was told to, stack dogs. I was told, charge like $20 extra for dematting, things like that. Like, don't charge extra if they're there longer weeks. Hey, Best Pets, great to see you here live. And then I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm told to do, so I'm going to do this. But what I didn't know is that sometimes the people that are telling me to do these things aren't trying to buy a house as a single parent, aren't trying to dig themselves out of poverty. They don't need a 6-month emergency fund. They don't need to figure out how they can afford health care on their own. They don't need to figure out how am I going to show enough income to buy a house without screwing myself over on taxes. It's totally different. So I want you to keep that in mind, guys. I want you to remember that there's no reason for you to have to compare yourself. And even if you are one of these people that is in this I'm not using the word privilege. It's not that you're privileged. You've earned it. If you have a beautiful, wonderful spouse who loves you, you've earned that. You deserve that. You have family who loves you and is willing to help you out. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. I really think that's important. But for those of us that are not, we have to be more careful. And don't trust everyone. Like, listen to what I have to say and listen to the people that have worked with me. There are positives and negatives to everything. The way I coach is very risk adverse. I have been homeless. I have been hungry. I don't like taking a lot of big risks. I don't. And because of that, my business is growing slower. And I'm not going to tell you to take out a ton of debt. I'm not going to tell you to do things that I feel are potentially going to put you at more risk. So if you're like, I want to grow to 10 vans in 5 years, I may not be that person for you. Because I'm not going to want to see you get $1 million in van debt. I'm going to want to see you pay off a van, get another van, pay off a van, get another van, right? I'm going to try to help you lower your risk. And that may or may not be your jam. You may be like, listen, I have nothing to lose. Even if my whole building blows up and the insurance denies it, I'm no worse off. And I've met people like that where their spouse is like, no problem, honey. I'll give you $50,000 to build out your business. I'll pay the rent until it's profitable. And if it never gets profitable, it's, no different than any other hobby. And I'm not saying there's more people than you would expect in this industry that are like this. But I think what happens is that the people that are incredibly impoverished don't understand and they think they're doing something wrong. So those are really the people that I'm talking about, is these people that are incredibly impoverished or people that are the sole breadwinners, and you've got to make a living. I was talking to a very good friend of mine, again, another speaker, and she had the same thing. Like, she's been a single mom a long time. And for her, like, she's had to claw and scrape and really get everything. And her business took a lot longer to build, but that's because she had to fight for every single piece of it. And a lot of the advice that we see other speakers talk about that are coming from a more hobby perspective, they are really, really, really not aware of the idea that at any time, like for someone like me, if I don't work, I don't get paid, I don't have somewhere to live. If I don't work and I don't get paid, I can't eat. There is no one who's going to feed me. I feel like the Savvy Groomer community would definitely send me Starbucks cards. Sorry, River, you're in shit luck. Here you go. Have some coffee on me. But it's so, so important. Ashley's saying, even with these blessings, or lack of a better term, it is still important not to take them for granted. Things can change with a drop of a hat. Absolutely. That's another thing we talked about. Thank you so much for bringing that up. We talked about how people trying to keep up with this like very bougie situation with their grooming salon, right? They want to have this fancy grooming salon. They want to do these really intricate cuts, but charge Petco prices. And they can because, they don't need the money. What I find is that if they want to change their situation with their spouse, if they want to move, if they want to do anything like that, they really can't. They're going to be very stuck. And it's because they have, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the term golden handcuffs. Let me read the actual dictionary definition. So, golden handcuffs refers to benefits, typically deferred payments provided by an employer to discourage an employee from taking employment elsewhere. That is true, but alternatively, it can also be being married to someone who takes care of you financially that ultimately has the key to those things. Marie says, I understand for some they don't need money, but why not charge appropriate as if they needed it anyway? Well, okay, so this is a great conversation, right? So what I generally find is charging appropriately. If you have not taken my price increase masterclass, how would you assume what is appropriate? Right? So let's say you're like, okay, well, I'm going to call 10 grooming salons and I'm going to find whatever the middle number is. Well, we don't know if those people need the money or if they don't need the money. You don't know, looking at a grooming salon, if this person is a hobby business or if that person's a single mom. We have no idea. And even if you know that person personally, you may or may not know. You know, I have very good friends that are groomers, and, you know, they don't hide the fact that they are basically, and I hate the term hobby groomer because, like, they work hard. They do a great job, but they don't need the money. So whether they make $10,000 a year or $50,000 a year, it's irrelevant. It's just money for them to play with. And that's okay. You know, and from my standpoint is you should make a business that is profitable, of course. But if you're just going to be a hobby groomer, that's fine as well. It's whatever you want to do. But I agree, Marie, even if they don't need the money, they should charge appropriately. But so let's say you live in a very rich area. So let's say you live, I don't want to name names. Let's say you live somewhere where the average house, like 3-bedroom house, is between $750,000 and $1 million, right? Then in order to pay a livable wage, you might have to charge $200 for a small dog, right? Or let's look at like somewhere a little bit more middle class, right? Let's say you live in an area where you need to make $30 an hour which is about 50 grand, guys. It's not a lot of money. Like, people act like $30 an hour is a lot of money. That is like 50 grand a year. So if you need to make 50 grand a year to live a livable wage, you know, Marie, if you were to build that business, right, at $30 an hour, you could pay your employee. And again, let's say really quickly, guys, let's run the numbers, right? So if I'm going to do $30 an hour, right, and I'm going to assume my employee is going to work 8 hours. So that's $240. Let's say they're going to groom 5 dogs. And about the average price right now, let's say, is $65. So 5 times 65 is $325. 30% of that would be $97. Divided by 8 hours, that would mean if I charged for 5 dogs $65, I could only pay an employee $12 an hour. I got to get that up. So I'm like, okay, let me try to get this up. So 5 dogs times $100. It's $500. Again, that's on the top end. $100, 5 dogs in 8 hours, very normal. Times 30% would be $150, guys. Divided by 8. We're still only at $1,875. So the only reason this person could pay staff $30 an hour would be because they don't need proper metrics, right? Because what they're going to say is, okay, well, at $500 a day, I'll just pay 50%. So 50 divided by 2, that's $250 divided by 8 hours. Now the groomer's making $30 an hour. But by them offering to pay someone 50% because they don't need the money, right? Then what they're going to do is they're going to artificially keep the prices low. And that's the major thing we're having in this industry is we need to greatly increase the prices. We need what you guys would consider $45 on the cheap end to be $100. If we're going to pay our staff a livable wage and they're not going to have to do a ton of dogs, right? And you might say, well, I expect my groomer to do 8 dogs in 8 hours. Okay, well, let's do 8 dogs times $65. 520. 30% is 156. Divided by 8 hours a day. 1950. This is why we're having so much problems in the industry, because the person that can give 50% because they don't need the money is artificially keeping these prices down. It's a big problem, because the only reason that they're charging appropriately is simply because they don't need the money. They don't need to save for a 6-month or a 1-year emergency fund. They don't need a sinking fund to buy things in the future. They're not worried about what's going to happen if the landlord says, we're not going to renew your lease, because they have somebody else in their life, or they're like, whatever, if the grooming salon closes, that would suck, but I'll move on with my life. Or I'll just go buy a grooming van. It's not a big deal. And that's a gift. Like, I wish I had somebody who was in my corner so much that if things went sideways, I'd be good. But I don't. Like, if I can't make money, I would be homeless. I would be hungry. And that's it. Right. So Marie, and again, like, when you look at your overhead, are you able to hire someone full time that they could make a livable wage making 30%? And I'm happy to help you do the math if you want, but if you live in an area, like, what is a livable wage in your area? And even then, this is something we talked about at this. So let's do 30 times, let's say 40. So that's $1,200 a week. Times, let's say 52 weeks. Let's say they never take a vacation. That's $62,000. So this person works 40 hours a week and no vacation. We're at $62,000. And then let's go ahead and divide that by 12. So you're making $5,200 a month. This seems like a lot, but where I'm at, you need to be able to pay 3 times as much in rent. So divided by 3, a third of their pay would go to rent. And just so you know, the average cost in this area is realistically between $1,500 and $2,200 for rent. So they're right in that portion, but they get no time off. They're working 40 hours a week. They can never get sick. They can never take time off just to live. So this is where, again, when we're saying they must charge appropriately, what if appropriately is $125? And they don't want to do that. They don't. Deborah's saying that's why big businesses can offer such bottom prices. They don't need it. Absolutely. My friend and I started this conversation because there was a crocheted sweater at Target and it was $35. And I didn't know anything about crocheting. But I guess it's very hard to machine crochet this item. And so it was fascinating because somebody who does handmade garments said that this would take her 17 to 20 hours to create. And that there was no way that item was ethically sourced. Because they'd have to pay about $1.75 and not pay for any of the other, not paying for materials, not paying for anything. That is how much it would cost per hour. And it's really hard to compete with that. So I agree. I would like to see people that have the gift of having that safety net. If anything, I wish they would go first. I would really love the people that can afford to go first. Because, if you live in an area where you need to make $30 an hour to be comfortable, right? So again, 30 times 8, $240. And that means that, and let's say we're grooming 5 dogs, right? We're going to do our 5 times 100. Do, 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 do. Yeah, we need to be at 5 times, I think it's 125. Yeah, I gotta keep going up. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Wow, guys. This is nuts. Yep. So, the groomer making 80 and doing... Yeah, the groomer doing $80 a dog and can do 10 dogs in 8 hours. Let's say that power groomer. That same person, obviously, I should have known the math there. In order to do 5, we need to charge $160. To do 5 dogs a day. To earn, right? So let's say I'm doing 5 dogs a day. Times 160 is $800. Then I'm going to get my 30%, which is $240, which is what I would pay that employee. That's their livable wage. Divided by 8 hours is your $30 an hour. So the people that should be charging the 160, they're not going to get it. Or if they are going to get it, it's because they're not doing a full day's worth of dogs. And it's like, it's this hard thing where like impoverished people can't afford to not be, they can't afford to turn dogs away. And then the people that don't need the money can turn the dogs away, but don't really want to. And they can afford to keep their prices artificially low. So what we need to see is that really minimally, a small dog at $100, our doodles between $200 and $400. And that's the tough part, is that I see all these people, even if you're not in poverty, the people that need their paycheck, they need the money, trying to compete with people that don't need money, right? And it's completely disproportionate. And if you are the person that is trying so hard to figure out what you're doing wrong, you're not doing anything wrong. You know, if you follow my stuff, I have lots of great advice. I have lots of great free content and paid content, whatever it is that you need. But a lot of what we're told in the grooming business, in seminars and classes, is from hobby groomer people, or people that have only owned a hobby groom business. A lot of people have never known, like, what do I do if I can't make payroll? You know, do I eat today or do I pay the shop rent? You've never had that situation. It doesn't make you more worthy if you have suffered this way. But what it does do is add a layer of fear and a layer of being afraid to take that extra step. So if you are not in a position to do this, don't feel like you need to keep up with the Joneses. And not every groomer that's a hobby groomer is a Joneses. You know, what this is, like this new breed of hobby groomers that are these influencers. They have these really elaborate not naming names, but like they have these very elegant or bougie kind of businesses. And again, I'm not naming anyone's name. That's not like a whistle or anything like that. I have no idea about not like people like that. I've never talked to that person. I don't know anything about that. But just in general, you know, it's a situation where, you know, again, like I know like we have like, I have to like watch my words because I'm like, I'm the Savvy Groomer, we have a Bougie Groomer, we have the Mindful Groomer, we have like all these people's like names. And so I'm like, I'm not talking about these people. I'm talking about a general type of person. And they're generally not super influencers. They're generally not like people like that. But some of them are. And I just want you to protect yourself. I want you to protect yourself from feeling like that. And this is happening in all areas of our lives, right? I'm always shocked. Like, I'm embarrassed by my face, but I try really hard to not wear a lot of makeup, like for my acne. And I never use a filter. And that's really hard. The reason I don't use filters is because I think it's really unfair. I think that we are using like video filters and body filters, and I don't want to be a part of that movement. I try really hard to love myself enough to accept myself enough that I don't need filters. And I don't give a shit if someone else uses filters. I am just choosing not to. I think it's really unfair the way that a lot of these things are done, and I openly admit when I've done things I'm not proud of, or things that, do add a layer. A great example is I had a coaching client who was in Australia, and she was hysterically crying one morning. It was like 5 a.m. my time. And I said, why are you crying? And she's like, you get up you are up, ready at 5 a.m. with your makeup done. And I just laughed. I said, girl, my eyebrows, my eyeliner, and my lips are all tattooed on. This is not I got up early and did my makeup. No, I rolled my ass out of bed, came in, still put a sweater over my pajamas, and got ready for work. But we don't know unless we dig below the surface. Everyone looks successful and skinny and sexy and loved and perfect and wonderful on social media. I'm not perfect. I try really hard not, like, I don't ever want anyone to think that. I don't ever want someone to think that, like sometimes I'm a hot mess express. I really am, and I was not a perfect business owner by any stretch of the imagination. We talked about today, like things I'm really not proud of that I've done. Things that I teach you guys because I don't want you to do it. And so when you say, oh my God, I did this, I said, I've been there. Oh, I'm so sorry. Sucks. And we've talked about it on other lives. My most important gift I'd like to give you is that don't worry about keeping up with somebody else. You don't know their financial situation. You don't know what their business looks like. It could all look good on paper. And then when you peel it back, you might see something very different. Okay? So if they say, I can afford 50% employees, you say that's a really nice gift you can give your employees. I'm just not in a financial position to do that. Okay? If they tell you, I can afford XYZ 1, 2, 3, you can say, that's great. I'm just not in a position to offer that right now. If they're telling you you are price gouging or you're too expensive, that's because they don't need the money. Poor people and people that can't afford to pay their bills are too busy to tell you what to do with yours. So don't get caught up in it, guys. Okay? That is my little soapbox. I'm going to get off of it. Today's conversation was all about keeping up with the Joneses. I want you guys to really focus on finding your happiness, on making sure that you're going to be able to do this in a way that you like and you really identify with. Don't mind me. I'm trying to move stuff. You know how it goes. I'm like, So if you guys want to continue the conversation, please hop into my free Facebook group called Savvy Pet Professionals. We're talking about personal finance, business, and lifestyle. I think that you're going to really enjoy, just it's a great little group. I really have fun with it. That's all that matters to me. I'm like, And again, Savvy Groomer is not a hobby, but my Facebook group, I make no money. It's my hobby. I enjoy company. I enjoy when you guys come here live, right? I mean, I'm here for you guys live because I appreciate you. And ultimately, this is what I do for fun. Someone's like, oh, what do you do for fun? I'm like, oh, I talk to groomers. What do you do for a living? Oh, I talk to groomers. And it can be both. It can be both what you love and your hobby. So don't let other people make you feel bad. If you are the breadwinner, or if your family counts on your paycheck, remember that the people you're taking advice from may or may not have that same constraints. So just take it with a grain of salt. Even me, take me with a grain of salt. Question everything. Think about yourself, digest it. No one's perfect. And we're learning new things every day. No one has an exact answer for you today that's going to be true forever. My feelings on brick and mortar have changed. And they've changed because as things progress with COVID, things are more unpredictable. And I have a very low risk factor, very low risk tolerance. And I don't think it's ever going to change for me. When you've had that much trauma around money and that much trauma around having things that you want or love or need stripped from you, you don't heal from that fully. All right, guys. So I love talking with you guys, and I will see you here next week, same day and time, Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. As always, guys, happy grooming.